You're not on the field, court, or ice. You're on the couch. From DG to DC, this is Coaching from the Couch with your host, C. Wall. Delivering coverage for all DC sports teams from the hometown perspective. Nats, Skins, Mystics, DC United, Washington Wizards, Caps, Bowie State.
My name's C-Wall, I'm a PG girl. Down for my skins, I don't know if you heard. If you like watching sports, then I am your girl. Sit down on the couch if you not on the field. Cold on the ice, picking any sport that you want. Know that I cover it tight. What would you like? From baseball to football and more. The list can go on the whole night. Big shouts out to my HBCU fam. Never forget who I am through the wins and the losses, the highs and the lows. We gotta stay strong, so I stay 10 toes. Make the competition back. The way I kick it, make them mad, man. See all that we live and direct. Sit back on the couch and relax. Come on.
Hey, everybody. Welcome to another edition of Coaching from the Couch. This is your weekly DMV Sports Update, and I am your host, C-Wall, checking in as I do to give you all of the latest and greatest, the highlights of what's happening in sports in the Washington metropolitan area. I see folks are already checking in. I see Damon, I see Cameron Mingo. You all got to make sure you say hello to Mama Waller and Pops Waller as well, because we know he's watching somewhere. But make sure you are sharing this show with your DMV sports loving family and friends. We always know that we can catch this show each and every single day. Let me make sure you all have the information on Bowie Television, you all, each and every single day on Verizon Fios, Channel 11, and Comcast Xfinity, Channel 77. This is a live Bowie Television recording, though. So, hey, you never know. Your comments, your information, your questions might just get posted so that it's shared on television as well. Make sure you all are sharing the show. We got a lively discussion, some basketball hoops, some updates from that perspective. Definitely want to talk to Wizards fans for a bit. And of course, there's always some Commanders talk whenever we get together. Now, isn't there? You all hit that love button, drop a fire emoji so that I know you're all the way with it. This episode, you all, is brought to you by Uplift Property Suite. Shout out to our sponsor at Uplift Property Suite, where they are uplifting lives through property ownership. Customers can find them online at www.upliftpropertysuite.com. All right, you all, who's ready to jump in to the conversation? Make sure you tag your folks in here and share the show with them, because there is so much to discuss. All right, who checked in on the NCAA tournament? First of all, how were your brackets? Did your brackets make it out or not? Because, wow. This year, it was just no way that you can call the winner of either of these championships. But guess what, you all? We have some champions from the state of Maryland. Shout out to Angel Reese of LSU and her cousin, Jordan Hawkins of UConn. They are walking away as NCAA champions, you all. Love button, fire emoji. Definitely, because look, I know there was a lot of talk and drama surrounding the LSU and Iowa game, but we're going to focus on the positive. And because, hey, we got to stay on brand with DMV, so we have to give a shout out to our Maryland natives. It's really exciting to see them take away the championship or go ahead and win that and become champions. Listen, whenever they from, we got to stay on brand. Virginia, DC, Maryland, we got to give love to everybody. So shout out to them. Other news, Any Maryland Terps fans watching live? If you are, have you heard the news that Jakia Brown-Turner from Oxon Hill, Maryland, is back? She has recommitted or I guess I'm just saying committed, but I'm saying recommitted to be a Lady Terp next season. Love button, fire emoji, because so excited to have her back. She had gone on to North Carolina State, and now she's with the Maryland Terps. So shout out to her. All right, you all. See a couple of yays. See Demond left the fire emoji. Cameron Mingo, I see you said you didn't do a bracket. I didn't either. I retired from bracketology because it's just too hard to figure out. And these teams are just really at every single level elite. So it's hard to keep up with. But hey, the Maryland natives took it away. Congratulations to LSU and UConn. Wizards fans, check in. Wizards fans, definitely, if you can tell, we got a lot of time. So you definitely want Wizards fans and Commanders fans to be engaged in this conversation because we got some time. And I wanted to ensure that you all was able to hear and dedicate this time to air your grievances, at least for Wizards fans. Let's have a real conversation. The Wizards season is it's over. It's done. It's 2 more games. The Miami Heat, the Houston Rockets. Of course, games are always fun. And we see John Adams is checked in. So, hey, how you doing, John? Listen, I want to know, we haven't played this one in a while. And I really want to know. We don't have to wait till next week until the season is officially over. We can have this conversation right now. And that is, what is your one word to describe how you're feeling about how the Wizards season ended up? What is your one word? I want to know. And I can think of a number of things. And I see, let's go ahead and address Cameron Mingo's comment about the fans who are fans of tanking. Tanking isn't a bad thing. There's other organizations who are actually in winning positions right now who have used it. It's a strategy. Tanking is actually a strategy to assist with draft position. Now, that's not what the Wizards are doing. That's just what happened to them. But let's be for real about something. Tanking, and I'm not a fan of tanking. That's not what I'm saying here. But what I am saying is tanking is absolutely a strategy used to get the best possible draft position once you know your team isn't going to make the playoffs. Once there's an inkling that whatever moves that were made at a specific point in time didn't work out, you can say, you know what? Sit everybody. Sit them. You got any ailments? You got anything going on? Let's sit folks. Let's see if we can, maybe even use them for trade capital at some point. It's a strategy, and that's not a strategy that I subscribe to. And here's the other thing with tanking. You have to be careful not to believe that the team is doing that. The Wizards are not tanking. Let me say this right here, right now. The Wizards are not tanking. That's not what we watched. That's not what's happening here. The Wizards didn't effectively execute in must-win situations, and even in situations where folks thought they weren't going to win, so that they could stamp their position in playoff contention. That's what happened. Tanking is absolutely a strategy. And like I said a moment ago, there are some teams that have used that as a strategy, and some of those teams are in the playoffs comfortably. It worked for them. And that's a fact. That's true. That's what they did. They said, we're not good. We're not in a good space. We're not going to make it. Let's see what we can do. And you get in great draft positions and you draft well, it works out for you. But I want to be clear that that's not what happened with the Wizards. We all watched the Wizards not play to their full potential, not execute, not perform with the rigor that is needed, what you want to see from championship caliber teams. So once everyone starts talking about tanking, I'm very careful about that topic because, again, it is a strategy that organizations have used and it's worked for them. But don't think that was what the team was intentionally doing, because it was not. And I need a love button or a fire emoji if you understand what I'm saying, right? Sometimes when folks are watching the game, they're like, oh, they're tanking. That's what they're doing. No, that's not what was happening. That's not what was happening at all. And you all already shared in the chat some of your words, and almost across the board. And what's up to DJ Blam? You saw that you were able to join the live discussion. Disappointing. Absolutely. Now you see Joy, who is a facilitator of Seawall Bowie TV, in the chat. We had a conversation the other day, and I'm going to tell this story. I'm telling on you, Joy, okay? I said, well, the Wizards are officially eliminated from the playoffs. And Joy says, well, were they ever a contender? And I said, well, dag, Joy. My goodness. OMG. How could you say something like that? But it made me think, were they? Were they? Now, if I'm answering that question, I want you all to answer that question as well. Being objective, were the Wizards ever a contender? The challenge starting out with the Wizards was, and throughout the season, has been a healthy roster. Let me be clear about this. I'm saying that it was a challenge, that a healthy roster was an issue, but I'm not putting it on that. But that was one of the challenges, right? How often did you see a game where Bradley Beal, Kristaps Porzingis, and Kyle Kuzma all played, right? And where was a game you could probably can count on one hand or so? A game where the full roster was available, right? So that injuries were definitely an issue. But execution was the biggest downfall. The biggest downfall. There were mishaps in several instances where the Wizards were not careful with the basketball. They were playing careless. You could see that they were not focused. It just seemed like they couldn't get it. They just couldn't get in the groove of what was happening and really play to their potential. And that goes for most of the players. Right now, I will definitely continue to say that Kyle Kuzma and Kristaps Porzingis, all season long, you saw them bring it. All season long. That's what I felt. Those two all season long. You saw others have flashes, right, where they played at a certain level one game, and then you didn't see them anymore for about a week or two. So consistency just was never on the side of the Wizards, and they just didn't seem to ever get in a groove. The Wizards would have win streaks here and there. Then it would just go away. They would just stop. And they just couldn't get back on that groove. The things that you see winning teams and teams that understand the assignment of playoff or bust is that level of consistency, that level of rigor, the level of execution that is needed to always say, we are claiming our spot in the playoffs. And you have to claim your position in the playoffs all season long. Now, here's one thing I know I've always shared with folks. It's nice to get excited at the beginning of the season. And I even see fans who are ready to just throw their entire team away at the beginning of the season. And I always say this, wait till around December. Wait till you get around about mid-December or so. Cream starts rising to the top. You start paying attention to what's going on. Because that's when teams start to gel. And that's when teams have film on you. Now you got enough film to know who you're running up against because these teams change every year. So once you get enough film under your belt and you say, hey, I know the coaching schemes, I know the plays, I know who's going to get the hot hand. I've seen where this team has been successful, and I've seen where other teams have been successful with giving them issues. And so now I can better prepare. Around December is when everybody's got enough film to game plan with power. Why? Because they are trying to make the playoffs. That's why. Okay? That's what has to happen for the Wizards. They have to have a mentality going in. We're going to the playoffs. And you have to understand where you are at all times. Yes, the season is long. But guess what? There's going to be plenty of teams playing in the play-in and making the playoffs. And the Washington Wizards will not be one of them. And I do believe that they had enough from a roster perspective and on the games that they were on, that they showed the potential that they could have at the very least made the play-in. But given that they did not, considering the games that they were impressive, that we saw all of them just, and every game isn't going to be immaculate. Every game isn't going to be super efficient and effective. But I do want to see a high level of consistency and rigor so that we understand what you're trying to do and we understand who you want to be. Do you want to make the postseason? Do you want to be a team that people fear? Do you want to be an individual player that people fear? Oh, gosh. Oh, this is going to have a time on our hands guarding him. And the Wizards have not shown that. They've not shown it, and they haven't been consistent. And until they can do that, and until they share also just on the court, but also that level of game planning for the other team, until they can do that, there's going to be more of this. There's going to be much more of this. And keep an eye out on SI.com, Fan Nation, Inside the Wizards. We're going to continue to bring you all the good content and information on the Wizards and on the team. And we're going to be tracking the playoffs still because there's much to be learned about looking at other playoff teand watch the teams that consistently make the playoffs. And I want to go back to this point of tanking. Go back and look at some of the teams who are making the playoffs that weren't all that good a couple years ago. Really pay attention to how they drafted and what their seasons were like prior to. It's start to pay attention to it. It's a method to this. It's a strategy to this. But within that method and that strategy, you have to know and understand that you want to be a winner. And if you're not the number one spot winner, meaning the champion, we're making the playoffs or everybody's got to go home. Love button, fire emoji, if you understand what I'm talking about, if you get what I'm saying, because, hey, Wizards fans have always dealt with this. Bullets fans haven't seen a championship since the 70s. So there's that. There is that. We're going to close the show out. You already know. Commanders fans, where are you, my dear friends? I got a lot of content I want to share. Want to share this right here. Love button, fire emoji for Washington Commanders head coach Ron Rivera, who was the recipient of the 2022 Salute to Service Award. He was honored the other day, and here is some footage from that event.
I really do appreciate the opportunity and very humbled to stand here at this memorial to the World War I veterans that are affectionately known as the Doughboys, and say thank you very much for your sacrifice and your commitment to our nation's freedom and for what we have today in this world. I also want to say thank you very much to my father, retired Chief Warrant Officer, 4th grade, Eugenio Rivera Munoz, who was a career Army officer and also a Vietnam veteran. Dad, and all you other Vietnam veterans, thank you and welcome home.
So there were a series of flags flown over the World War I Memorial when it first opened after the basic construction was finished. Flags were flown over the Capitol, then sent to Europe and flown over all of the cemeteries, the United States cemeteries in Europe, then over the World War I Museum and Memorial in Kansas City, and then brought here and flown for the first time over this memorial. National Memorial in Washington, D.C. So we're honored to have you here today, Coach, and we're pleased to have you have that as a remembrance of what took place.
Thank you, Dan.
Thank you.
Definitely had to take a moment and give another shout out to head coach Ron Rivera, who, my fun fact, give a shout out, love button, fire emoji, high five. Pops Waller is also a Vietnam veteran, you all. So if you all know, I always stop and show respect and just honor to all veterans. It's because I come from a veteran family. My dad, my brother, cousins, you name it, who have served this country. So it has a near and dear space for me as well. All right. 2 other topics we got to cover. And shout out to Kyle Nash of Student of the Game. Kyle Nash is one of my NFL media colleagues, super, super awesome guy. And Kyle asked me, I felt so honored to be a part of the Student of the Game real mock draft, where I had the opportunity to share who I think the Commanders are going to pick. For a minute, I really thought I was the GM. I was like, okay, little Martin Mayhew, you taking this real seriously. But listen, I want to share with you all my pick for the Washington Commanders. Now, hey, listen, we got a little bit of time left, but there's a lot to talk through about this. But check this out. You might be surprised at who I chose in terms of who I think the Washington Commanders should pick with their first rounder at number 16.
With the 16th pick in the Student of the Game Real Mock Draft, here's Candy Waller.
With the 16th pick in the Student of the Game draft, the Washington Commanders select Maryland Terrapins cornerback Deonte Banks. And here's why. The Commanders still have a need at DB. Deonte had an incredible NFL combine, which I witnessed with my own 2 eyes. He's skilled in both press and zone coverage. Listen, think Patrick Peterson, think Stephon Gilmore, and that is what you potentially have in Deonte Banks. And that is why I think, although some people may say it's a little high, I think the Washington Commanders take a chance on the Baltimore native and make him a Washington Commander. So I already know. Folks are like, that's too high. And listen, Deonte blew me away at the combine. He really did. Now, there's also, we know that there's eyes on Devon Witherspoon. We know that there's eyes on Joey Porter Jr. I know, I get it. But you for a couple things, you don't have to stay on brand, showing love to the DMV. But also, seriously, I really think that Deonte would be an excellent pick for the Washington Commanders. There's still some needs at offensive line, but the team has done pretty daggone good, I must say, with loading up depth at the offensive line position during free agency. So keep your eyes out. Who knows who's right and who's wrong? Sometimes the teams don't even know until the night of who they're really going to pick. But we do know this, that the final decision maker is, in fact, Ron Rivera. So that remains to be seen. Love button, fire emoji, if you were digging that. Special shout out again to Kyle. And here's another clip from a show I did last week with Kyle. And Kyle had to ask me the very important question about the Commander sale. And here was my response.
Talk to me a little bit about what you know with what's going on with the situation with the Commanders and the sale of the team and what's out there and what's going on.
Here's what I can tell you, because there's still folks out there that think the team is not getting sold or that Daniel Snyder will have a portion or some minority stake still in the team. The team is being sold. But here's what I think is happening though, Kyle. Now here is where Seawall perspective jumps in.
That's what I'm looking for.
Seawall perspective is bids that have met the asking price of $6 billion have come in. That doesn't mean that the bid is actually $6 billion, right? And because it's still kind of not necessarily slow, there's still reason to believe that there is another bidder out there somewhere. And now that it is public knowledge who has placed a bid, will this mystery person just come out of nowhere? Listen, I'm going to tell you all again, just as I shared with Kyle on the Student of the Game pod, the bids are in. Everybody knows the price. And the bids meet the asking price. Sure, it may not be taking a long time per se, but right about now, the Snyders have their pick. They can choose what they want, which way they want to go. Now, here's the reality. Again, I'm going to share this again because I think this is important. And it had me thinking, okay, if Josh Harris was the shoe-in, if he's already got the team, things are already working through, and they're just figuring out financial and legal transactions, that's cool and that's great. But I'm going to go back to the Denver Broncos sale situation where Josh Harris had an ownership group that included Magic Johnson that had a bid in for the Broncos. And there was plenty of articles, public news, and knowledge that had Harris known that there was going to be a bid that would come in higher, he would have bid much higher starting out. This remains to be seen on the who purchases the team. But what does not need to be questioned anymore is if the team is being sold, because it absolutely is. Okay? It's gone. It's sold. Out of here. So no one else has to ask that question. But the who, let's say it is Josh Harris. Let's say it's already stamped. That's who it is. And we know that there's just some legal things and all those things are moving through. But keep your eyes on this, because Josh Harris, his ownership group was outbid at the last minute. I say last minute. Maybe it really wasn't last minute, but you know what I mean. At the 11th hour for the Broncos. Keep your eyes on it, because it'll be soon news. But, you know, we're going to keep paying attention to it. You all, I hope you enjoyed the show. We are at our time for this week. You all, listen, thank you for your active engagement. Thank you for watching. Thank you for sharing. Thank you for hitting that love button and that fire emoji. Don't forget, Bowie TV every single day, Verizon Fios, Channel 11, and Comcast Xfinity, Channel 77. I will be talking to you guys again soon.
You're not on the field or ice. You're on the couch. From DG to DC, this is Coaching from the Couch with your host, C. Wall. Delivering coverage for all DC sports teams from the hometown perspective. Nats, Skins, Mystics, DC United, Washington Wizards, caps. Who we stay?
My name's Seaworld, I'm a PG girl. Down for my skins, I don't know if you heard. If you like watching sports, then I am your girl. Sit down on the couch if you not on the field. Cold on the ice, picking any sport that you want. Know that I cover it tight. What would you like? From baseball to football and more. The list can go on the whole night. Big shouts out to my HBCU fam. Never forget who I am through the wins and the losses, the highs and the lows. We gotta stay strong, so I stay 10 toes. Make the competition back. The way I kick it, make them mad, man. See all that we live and direct. Sit back on the couch and relax. Come on.